Yo, what's up? Dr. Swole here, MD, bodybuilder, back with another video. So today I'm going to be giving you 10 tips to help you lose weight. Now, since everyone's been stuck at home with the pandemic, I've been getting a lot of questions about what we should be doing in terms of managing our diet. And today I'm going to be giving you some tangible strategies that I use myself to keep my diet in check. Now, briefly, recall that any change in our weight really boils down to calories in versus calories out. Now, the problems with the quarantine right now are twofold. First of all, your activity is way down since you're staying at home, you're not going out, you're not doing a lot of your usual activities. And this means you're putting less calories out. The other problem is, now that you're at home all the time, you're spending more time thinking about food and actually eating, so you're probably putting in more calories as well. So I just want you to keep this in mind when we're going through our tips today so you can think about where the calories are going to be affected by our different strategies. Since I've been staying at home more myself recently, I've definitely found it more difficult to stay on top of my eating. These are all strategies that I personally find really helpful on a daily basis, and they're all actionable items that you can implement right away. Make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let's get right into it. Now, tip number one is to keep snacks out of sight. Now, the problem is, if you have a bag of chips or cookies or whatever your favorite snacks are, lying around on your kitchen table or your counter, you're going to be walking past those multiple times per day. And every time you see them, your willpower is going to be tested. What this means is you'll end up thinking about those snacks more, and it'll give you more chances to cave in and eat those snacks when you shouldn't. So get all your snacks out of plain sight. I like to put them up in a high cupboard, or even better, just don't buy them. It's a lot easier to stick to healthy snacks if there's nothing else around the house. Tip number two is to have some vegetables or fruit before your meal. Vegetables and fruits are great because they're what we call volume foods. Basically, they have a lot of bulk in them for the amount of calories that they give you. Now, volume foods are going to be key in helping you reduce your calories if you want to lose weight. The trick I'm showing you here is to have them before your meal. And the idea is that you're going to fill up your stomach so that you'll end up eating less. Pro tip that I really like is to have my vegetables and fruit before I even set out my meal portion. Say if you just prepared food, or if you're taking leftovers and you're spooning them onto your plate, you're going to take less if you've already had something to eat. Now, tip number three is to eat fruits and vegetables until you're full after your meal. You've had your set portion and you're still feeling hungry, so instead of going back to spoon out a second portion, you should just have a piece of fruit or some vegetables. I personally find that this works really well for two reasons. First of all, fruits and vegetables, being volume foods, are going to help fill you up. Second of all, since they might be less tasty than what you were eating before, you're going to be less tempted to continue eating. Now, briefly, when I talk about fruits and vegetables, do keep in mind that these still contain calories, and fruits overall more so than vegetables. So just make sure to keep this in consideration. Also, when I talk about vegetables, I usually refer to these as plain vegetables, as in I'll try to minimize the addition of extra sauces or dips that might be adding calories. So I would recommend just having your vegetables raw, boiled, or steamed. I think this tip is actually really important because when you're trying to diet, the biggest enemy is hunger. And obviously, if you're decreasing your calories, you're going to feel hungry. And having that finisher at the end of your meal in terms of vegetables or fruit is going to make sure that you feel full at the end of every meal. Tip number four is to swap out high-calorie foods. Now, the problem with the quarantine is that people continue with their usual eating habits without adjusting for their decreased activity levels. I'm telling you now that you're gonna have to make some changes. A simple way to do this is to swap out your calorie-dense foods with lower calorie options. For example, let's say you have an omelet with cheese and a muffin for breakfast in the morning. You can lower the number of calories that you're eating and still feel full if you swap those out for, say, boiled eggs and oatmeal instead. So just remember that even though you're lowering your caloric intake, that doesn't mean that you need to go hungry. Tip number five is pretty simple, and that's to eat more slowly. Now, often it takes our bodies some time for us to actually feel full after eating. Often, for me, I won't actually feel full until 10 or 20 minutes after I finish eating. Now, obviously, the problem is if you're at your dinner table and you're still not full, you're gonna keep eating for those 20 minutes, and you're gonna take in a lot more calories than you really need. The solution to this is to eat more slowly. Now, I've spent a lot of time being hungry over the last few months since I was preparing for a bodybuilding show, and I ended up losing 17 pounds. And one strategy that I found to really help is to make sure that I swallow every bite before preparing my next one. So have you ever noticed that, say when you're eating a steak, you'll still be chewing one bite of steak while you're already cutting your next piece? Now, an easy way to slow down your eating is to try to focus on eating more mindfully. So focusing on what you're eating, focusing on the present. And in the steak example, you would swallow that bite before you even pick up your knife and fork again. Tip number 6 is to eat at regular times. I think this is a challenge for a lot of people who are at home with no structure right now. And it helps a lot to follow a set schedule. A big benefit of this is that it'll help you avoid unplanned snacks. The reason this works is that for the most part, when we have these unplanned snacks, they're usually much higher in calories than what we'd be normally eating for a meal. So aim to have regular meals and try not to deviate too far from that schedule. Tip number 7 is to plan what you're going to eat in advance. Now, the issue with not planning is that if you wait until you're really hungry to choose what you're going to eat, you're naturally going to lean towards higher calorie options. So don't wait until you're feeling starved. You want to be avoiding those situations where you're dashing to the kitchen, slamming open the cupboard, and just taking whatever looks good to eat. Tip number 8 is to try tracking your food. If you haven't done it before, tracking your food really helps you become more aware of what you're actually taking in with your meals. So an easy way to do this is to download an app like MyFitnessPal. You'll just enter in what you've been eating and it'll pop out your calories and the actual macronutrient breakdown. Another way to do this would be to keep a food diary. So just write down what you eat with every meal and when you eat it. It'll really help you understand what's going in and you'll start to see patterns with your eating. Tip number 9 is to sleep more to reduce your calories. Now, people who are chronically sleep deprived tend to eat more. Part of this is just due to increased hunger, but part of it is just because you're spending more hours awake and thus you have more opportunities to eat. Something that might help with this that ties into my other tips is to keep a regular schedule. So even if you have no plans over the weekend and you're just gonna be at home, I'd recommend still getting up at something near your usual time and not staying up till 4 a.m. binging on Netflix. Now, my 10th and last tip is to reduce stress. Now, a lot of people tend to eat more when they're under a lot of stress. How you do this exactly is up to you and probably beyond the scope of this video, but I'd recommend setting aside some time each day to do something that relaxes you. Suggestions would include exercising, listening to music, or practicing mindfulness and meditation. All right, hope you found those tips useful. They're all tips that I've found helpful myself, and they should help you reach your body composition goals, whether that's losing weight or stopping yourself from gaining weight too quickly. If you found this video helpful, make sure you like the video and hit subscribe. Leave me a comment below and let me know what your favorite weight loss strategies are. If you want to hear some more unique tips that you can implement today to help you burn fat, check out my video where I outline 3 diet hacks that bodybuilders use to lose weight. That's all for now, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.